Let me ask you something right now. If you lost your job tomorrow, how long could you survive financially? 1 month? 2 months? 1 week? Because right now in May 2026, the word that every economist, every banker, and every financial expert is whispering, and some are screaming, is recession. Moody's recession probability indicator is currently matching the exact same level it hit before every single recession going back to the 1960s. Consumer sentiment in America just hit its lowest reading in history, not in decades. In history, and yet most Americans are doing absolutely nothing to prepare. They're watching the news, they're feeling anxious, they're talking about it at dinner, and then they go to bed and do nothing different the next morning. Today that changes, because in the next 15 minutes I'm going to show you exactly what a recession means for your money, exactly what happens to people who are not prepared, and exactly what you need to do right now, before it hits, to make sure you are not one of the people who gets financially destroyed by this one. First things first. What is a recession and why should you actually care? A recession is officially 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth, but forget the textbook definition. Here is what a recession actually feels like if you are an average American. Companies stop hiring, then they start cutting. Layoffs begin, first quietly, then loudly. The company that felt totally stable suddenly announces it is downsizing 15%. Your department, your role, your paycheck. At the same time, prices don't go down just because the economy is struggling. In fact, right now, inflation is still running hot. Core PCE has been above the Fed's 2% target for 60 consecutive months. So you are paying more for everything while your income becomes less secure. Your investments drop. If you have a 401k or any money in the stock market, you watch the number go down. Every day, for months, sometimes for over a year. Credit tightens. Banks get scared and stop lending easily. If you need a loan for a car, a home, an emergency, suddenly it is harder to get and the interest rates are higher. And here is the most brutal part. The people who get hurt the worst in a recession are not the wealthy. The wealthy have emergency funds, diversified investments, and multiple income streams. The people who get destroyed are the ones living paycheck to paycheck with no cushion, which, as we know, is 78% of Americans. The recession does not create financial problems. It exposes them. The single most important thing you can do right now, today, is build your financial wall. Your emergency fund. I know you have heard this before, but I need you to hear it differently this time. Because in normal times, an emergency fund is just good financial hygiene. In a recession, an emergency fund is the difference between surviving and drowning. Here is what happens to people without an emergency fund in a recession. They lose their job, they have no savings, they start missing payments within 30 days, credit score drops, they take on debt just to pay for groceries. They lose their apartment, their car gets repossessed, their credit is destroyed for years. Everything falls apart, not because of one bad decision, but because there was no wall between them and disaster. Here is what happens to people with a fully funded emergency fund. They lose their job, they have 6 months of expenses saved. They take a breath, they spend 2 months doing a proper job search instead of taking the first desperate option. They find something good, they come out fine. Same recession, completely different outcomes. The only difference was the wall. Your target right now is 6 months of living expenses in a high-yield savings account. Not 3 months, 6 months. In a bad recession, jobs can take 4 to 6 months to find. You need the full runway. If you don't have that yet, this is your #1 financial priority above everything else. Above investing, above extra debt payments, above everything. Build the wall first. Sell things you don't need. Cut every non-essential expense. Pick up extra income. Get to 6 months as fast as you possibly can. Here is a hard truth. Your job is not as secure as you think it is. In 2023, before this current situation, 5.5 million Americans were laid off. That was during a relatively stable economy. In a recession, that number multiplies. Companies cut costs, and the biggest cost at most companies is people. So what do? You make yourself harder to lay off. and you build income that doesn't depend on any one employer. First, make yourself recession-proof at your current job. Become the person who is impossible to cut. Take on more responsibility. Learn skills that are directly tied to revenue generation. Be the person who brings in clients, saves money, or solves the most critical problems. In a recession, companies cut costs, but they protect revenue. Be on the revenue side. Second, start building a second income stream right now. Not someday, right now, before the recession hits and everyone else is desperately scrambling to do the same thing. Your second income stream does not have to be glamorous. It just has to exist. DoorDash, Uber, freelance writing, graphic design on Fiverr, selling things online. Anything that puts money in your pocket from a source that is not your primary employer. $500 a month from a side hustle is not just $500. In a recession, it is the difference between making your rent payment and not. It is the thing that keeps you from draining your emergency fund. It is the income stream that survives even if your employer doesn't. And third, if your job is in a high-risk industry, retail, hospitality, real estate, finance, start quietly and professionally exploring other options now. Not in a panic after the layoffs are announced. Now, while you have leverage, while you are employed and choosing, not unemployed and desperate. If you have high-interest debt, especially credit card debt, a recession is your worst nightmare. Here is why. In a recession, your income may drop, but your debt does not. Your credit card balance does not care that your hours got cut. The interest keeps compounding at 27%. The minimum payment keeps coming. And if your income drops or disappears, suddenly you cannot make even the minimum payment. Your credit score craters. Late fees pile on. The debt grows even faster. Right now, and before any of this happens, you need to attack your high-interest debt aggressively. Use the debt avalanche method. List every debt. Pay minimum on all of them except the highest interest rate card. Throw every single extra dollar at that card until it is gone, then move to the next one. The goal is to eliminate as much high-interest debt as possible before a recession tightens your budget. Also, call your credit card companies right now and ask for a lower interest rate. I have said this before, and I will keep saying it because 69% of people who ask receive one. A 5% lower interest rate on $8,000 of debt saves you $400 per year. One 5-minute phone call. And stop adding new debt right now. This is not a drill. If you cannot pay cash for something, you cannot afford it. In the months leading into a recession is the worst possible time to be adding to your debt load. Here is the mistake that costs Americans billions of dollars every single recession, and I do not want you to make it. When the stock market drops, and in a recession it will drop, do not sell. I know it feels terrible. You watch your 401k balance go from $45,000 to $32,000 to $28,000. Every day the number's lower. It feels like you are losing money. Everything in your body screams sell. Get out and stop the bleeding. Do not do it. Here is what actually happens when you sell during a market crash. You lock in your losses permanently. You turn a temporary drop into a real loss. And then when the market recovers, which it always has in history, you are not in it. You missed the recovery. You sold at the bottom and you bought back in at the top. You lost twice. Every single recession in American history has been followed by a recovery. Everyone. The 2008 financial crisis, the worst since the Great Depression, the market fully recovered within 5 years. COVID crash in 2020 recovered within 6 months. If you are invested in diversified index funds and you have 10 or more years until retirement, do nothing. Stay the course. Keep your automatic contributions going if at all possible. In fact, a market crash is a sale on investments. You are buying the same assets at a discount. The people who kept investing during 2008 and 2020 made fortunes. The only caveat, do not have money in the stock market that you need within the next 2 to 3 years. That money should be in a high-yield savings account, not in investments, because you might need to sell at exactly the wrong time. Let me be completely honest with you. Nobody knows exactly when a recession will hit. Nobody knows how deep it will go. Nobody knows how long it will last. Anyone who tells you they know these things with certainty is lying. What we do know is this: the indicators are flashing, the warnings are real, and preparation is always better than panic. The people who come out of recessions in better financial shape than they went in are not lucky. They prepared. They built their emergency fund before they needed it. They reduced their debt before it became unmanageable. They protected their income before the layoffs started. They stayed invested when everyone else was panic selling. You now have the exact playbook. Step 1, 6 months emergency fund. Build it now. Step 2, recession-proof your income. Make yourself harder to cut and build a second stream. Step 3, attack high-interest debt aggressively right now. Step 4, do not panic sell your investments when the market drops. 4 steps. That is it. 4 steps between you and financial disaster. The recession may or may not hit as hard as the indicators suggest, but these 4 steps make you financially stronger regardless. There is no downside to being prepared. If this video helped you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe because every single week we break down how to protect and grow your money. And comment below, what is your biggest financial concern about the recession? I read every single comment. Take care of your money, because right now your money needs you to take care of it more than ever.